in this episode. What is the exact meaning of flash? We need to understand first. So in this episode, we will be talking about what is flash and what are the different flashes that are available. Now this inbuilt flash is only available in entry-level DSLRs or mirrorless cameras. So ring flashes are really good. What are the pros and cons? The pros are so the third flash that's available for clinical photography is the twin flash. What are its pros and cons? Number one, the pros. There are a lot of sellers that are trying to sell you a ring LED light. You're listening to the Dental Photography School podcast, where I'll be sharing practical tips on clinical and general photography. I'm Dr. Mayur Dauda, and I've been coaching dentists and dermatologists on clinical photography since 2013. If you don't want to miss out on any action, make sure to subscribe to my show because I release an episode every Saturday morning. In our previous podcast, we've spoken about a lot of equipments, like which is the best camera for clinical photography, which is not the best camera for clinical photography, which is the best lens for clinical photography, and which is not. In this episode, however, I'll be speaking about the most important equipment in clinical photography, in documentation. That is the flash. Yes, flash is and will always remain the most important equipment for clinical photography, be it dental photography or dermatological photography or any other form of photography, because the settings that we typically work on for clinical photography, which is low ISO, a reasonably fast shutter, and high F numbers, guarantee that you will get a black image, and we do not want a fully black image. So the only way out of this situation is to use a very, very powerful source of flash. What is the exact meaning of flash? We need to understand first. So in this episode, we will be talking about what is flash and what are the different flashes that are available. And in the forthcoming episodes, we'll also see which is the best flash for the best particular use. For example, which is the best flash for surgical photography, or which is the best flash for documenting aesthetic photography, and so on and so forth. So what is flash? Flash is something that is spontaneous, which is really fast and really, really powerful at the same time. So if you want to have a huge burst of light in a very short span of time, it is called as a flash. So you need to understand that the light that they give you in mobile phones is actually a continuous light source. It is an LED light. Although you might think that it's powerful, it's not really that powerful, and something that's continuous can never be called as a flash. So flash is something that has to be really fast and really powerful. In other words, it's so powerful that if it's on continuous shooting, it might actually burn out or it might just give up. Also, flash requires some time to recharge before you actually use the flash once again. So what are the different flashes that are available for clinical photography? Number one, the most basic form, that is the inbuilt flash of your camera. Now this inbuilt flash is only available in entry-level DSLRs or mirrorless cameras. They are usually not available in the full frame or the professional DSLRs or mirrorless cameras. Can we use it? Yes, we can definitely use it initially, but it gives a lot of shadow. So the pros and cons of inbuilt flash is it's readily available. That's the pros. It's good. Yes, it does work, and it's very, very simple to use. So these are the pros. But what are the cons? The cons is it's just fixed on your camera. So it's just unidirectional most of the times. It does give you a lot of shadows, and sometimes you really don't want to have shadows. But can we use inbuilt flash? Yes, we definitely can use inbuilt flash initially before we shift on to other better options. So on camera flash or inbuilt flash, or also called as pop-up flash, is a good option for clinical photography or dental photography or dermatological photography for sure. The next flash is ring flash. Ring flash is made by different companies. However, the best ring flash would be by the company that's actually made your camera or your lens. I would definitely not suggest a third-party ring flash. If you have the budget, just go ahead and buy the original ring flash of the company's camera company that you have. So ring flashes are really good. What are the pros and cons? The pros are it's readily available. It's not that expensive. It is reasonably good. It does not give you any shadows. And the last is it's really very powerful. And it has a very long life to work with. You don't have to do a lot of permutations and combinations with the light because the light just sticks in front of your lens, so you cannot move the light. So it's very easy to use, very easy to set up. And because you don't have any moving parts, the life of a ring flash is going to be very, very long as compared to some other options like twin flash or dual point flash. So these are the pros of a ring flash. So what are the cons? The cons are it gives you unidirectional light once again, so it might give you a lot of reflections sometimes. So it's not really good for aesthetic photography in clinical documentation. But trust me, I have used it for aesthetic photography and it does work many a times. It's just a couple of cases, small percentage of cases where you might get a heavy amount of reflection where you would probably not want to use a ring flash, but in most of the cases it does work. The second con is that the light, since it's unidirectional, you do not get the third dimension like you would probably get when you use a twin flash. So it is quite an upfront source of flash, just like the inbuilt flash. So it does tend to make the images look quite flat. This is probably one con. The third is it does definitely add on to a lot of weight to your system. There's the camera and the lens. So I definitely love Canon's ring flash. It's one of the best ring flash. It is light and very powerful as well at the same time. Most of the ring flashes are wired ring flashes, except for one. I think Metz gives a wireless ring flash, but most of them are wired. So this could be added as a con, but it definitely can be used as an off-camera flash. If you actually remove it from the front of your lens, you can actually position in the side of your subject for creative or aesthetic photography as well in a couple of cases if you wish to. So these are the pros and cons of ring flash. A point to note over here is if you go online and search for ring flash, there are a lot of sellers that are trying to sell you a ring LED light. These are very, very cheap, but I would caution my listeners not to go ahead and buy the LED ring flashes. So the third flash that's available for clinical photography is a twin flash or a dual point flash. What are its pros and cons? Number one, the pros. It is very versatile. Number two, you can rotate the ring flashes to any angle of your choice. Number three, you can also remove it from the front of your lens and put it on two sides of your subject as an off-camera flash. If it's wired, you can still do it for quite some extent, but you can definitely remove it from the front of your lens and keep it on the sides of your subject. So it actually brings out the third dimension and the images look less flat as compared to a ring flash, and it's way more aesthetic. So twin flash have a good amount of pros, a lot of pros, but what are the cons? Twin flash adds a little bit more weight to your system as compared to a ring flash. So that is one big put off for me. If you want to use twin flash on brackets, you can, but a bracket is going to add you a lot of weight as compared to twin flashes just mounted in front of the lens. So that is one thing that you need to consider. I'll be considering flash brackets in our forthcoming episodes, but it's one thing that I prefer not to use quite often because twin flash as such itself is quite heavy. Number three is it brings out the third dimension only in the close-up shots, like in the anti-aesthetic close-up shot of the teeth, for example, for dentists. It does bring out the best colors. It brings about the best third dimension in that particular image. But for most of the other images, like the full arch occlusal image or full face shot of the patient or close-up smile of the patient, it is quite a nightmare to use because you cannot actually keep on adjusting the flash all the time. We do not have so much time in front of our patients. So this is one reason why I don't prefer to use a twin flash for most of the pictures. I just use it for the anterior aesthetic close-up shot. Because for most of the other shots, ring flash, I would say, is way more better and way more easier as compared to a twin flash. And it takes a lot of time to keep on moving the heads of the twin flash. So that's definitely a con for me when it comes to twin flashes. So these are the pros and cons of the twin flash. Obviously, a twin flash is a little bit more expensive, but right now we're not discussing expensive in the pros and cons. We're actually discussing which is ideal equipment for you. Moving on, we also have something called as speed lights. We can definitely use them for a couple of cases here and there. If you buy one speed light, you can take good portraits and good close-up shots of the face or the smile or other parts of the body in case you're a dermatologist. So speed lights do help quite a bit. You can bounce it off the ceiling and use it so it can give you less amount of shadows. The other pro of speed lights is that they are very, very reasonably priced. They are very versatile in the sense you can use it on the camera when you mount it on the hot shoe, and you can also use it wirelessly using a trigger. So just like a wireless flash, you can use a trigger on your hot shoe and use speed lights. You can either buy one speed light, two speed light, or three speed lights. That's also one of the pros. You can keep on adding as many speed lights as you want in your armamentarium, and they are all going to fire if they are compatible with the right trigger. You can also use them as slave, which does count as a very good pro. That means ring flash and twin flash cannot be used as slave. They can only be used as masters when you mount them on your camera. However, speed light that the wedding photographers typically use most of the times can be used as a master as well as a slave. So that's a very, very good pro over there. Then what are the cons? Speed lights require a little bit of a learning curve. So if you actually mount it on the camera, it's fairly simple. You can just bounce it off the ceiling and start taking portraits or pictures of different parts of the body. For example, just say like the palm. It works really well if you bounce it off the ceiling and you get very less shadows. But if you want to use it with a trigger wirelessly, there is a very small amount of learning curve. That's one con. Speed lights are typically way more heavier as compared to a twin flash or a ring flash if you are actually planning to buy two of them. I have actually seen a lot of clinicians, instead of buying a twin flash, what they do is they buy a bracket and then they put speed lights on the bracket and they try to use it as a twin flash. But trust me, it's a very bad option because speed lights are way, way more heavy as compared to a twin flash. So that's one thing that I would definitely not suggest, because I've been there, I've done that, and it really hurts and it becomes very, very heavy. Also, getting consistency if you want to use it as a twin flash is a bigger headache as compared to getting consistency when you're using the actual twin flash. So that's definitely a no. So speed lights are very, very powerful. So they also consume a lot of battery power. Actually, that the same holds true for ring flash or twin flash. If you just keep on firing them on full power, the ring flash, twin flash, or the speed lights are going to suck up a lot of battery power from your batteries, maybe rechargeable or non-rechargeable. They are very, very hungry for a lot of energy. So that actually, this con actually holds true for any of the systems like ring flash, twin flash, or speed lights. So you can actually use speed lights for a lot of things. For example, portraits. I've also used it for intraoral photography initially during my time. You can also mount it on light stands and use it as an alternative to studio lights if you buy the right diffusers. We are going to be speaking a lot on diffusers in our forthcoming episodes. So diffusers is nothing but a light modifier. We are going to have a separate episode for light modifiers like reflectors and diffusers, light cutters, and many more things in our forthcoming episodes. Moving on to the next light, that is studio lights. Now, personally, I always tell my listeners and my students and my followers that if you want to document a particular case for publications, go ahead with an inbuilt flash, ring flash, or a twin flash. But if you want to get yourself famous, if you want to make yourself famous, go ahead and buy a studio light, because it makes everything look so glamorous and so smooth. Because of the smooth reflections that you get on the particular subject, it actually brings out a completely different dimension that's very, very aesthetic. But you need to understand, because they are very, very large diffusers on your studio light, they are not going to be accepted for publications. So I keep it straight. If you want to do publications, ring flash or twin flash is the best. But if you want to do publicity, studio lights is a great option. So you have a lot of options in studio lights, but before I tell you the options, what are the pros and cons? The pros of studio lights are, it's very powerful. That's a great option. It can be directly plugged to the power supply, and it can be used instead of using a battery. So you have both the options actually. In most of the flashes, you have both the options, but in ring flash and twin flash, we actually do not connect it with the external power supply, but we can. But studio lights are actually used by connecting it to an external direct power supply instead of using it on the battery. So that's one of the pros for studio lights. It gets recharged very quickly because it's actually connected to an external power source. You can also use it on a battery if your studio lights is compatible for the same. Studio lights usually come with huge diffuser, which makes your subject look very, very glamorous. So I would probably include that in the pros. Studio lights come with light stands sometimes, so I would include that in the pros. But if you need to check it out, if your company of choice gives you the light stand or not. So if it does not give you a light stand, it comes into a con, because you'll have to purchase light stand separately. Okay. Studio lights are very simple to use, so that's also one of the pros. And there is a less margin of error, because since it's a very big light source, it's going to be spreading light almost in all the directions. So there is a very less chance of you going wrong, because they are very, very big light sources. So one more pro about the studio lights is that it's very reasonable as compared to a ring flash or a twin flash. For example, a Canon's ring flash or a Canon's twin flash would probably be around 40,000 rupees or 50,000 rupees. But in that amount of money, if you buy Elinchrom studio lights, Elinchrom FRX 200 or Elinchrom FRX 400, you would probably save some money, and you would still have 2 studio lights, 2 soft boxes, 2 light stands, and 1 trigger, which is a steel, which is really reasonable, and it really works the best for me. So what are the cons of a studio light? Number 1, since they are big, they require a little bit more room space as compared to a speed light or a twin flash, obviously, or a ring flash. So what I've done in my clinic is, instead of mounting the studio lights on the light stand, I have put them on the ceiling in the form of rails and a pantograph which comes down, and that saves a lot of floor space for me. So definitely there is a way out of this con. What is the next con is that you need to learn how to use studio lights. Initially, the learning curve is shorter, but definitely you have to learn how to use studio lights. It probably take half an hour for you to actually learn and set up the studio lights, not more than that. But yes, you need to figure out how to mount the diffusers, or how to make the diffusers, because when you get it, they're actually collapsed, and you have to put the rods and the cloths to actually give it a form of your choice. So that's something that you need to learn before you actually start using the studio lights. Other con is obviously your cases do not get published. So that's about the pros and cons of studio lights. That's all about the different light systems which are available for dental photography and documentation. So in a summary, you have inbuilt flash, ring flash, twin flash, speed lights, and studio lights. So you can choose whatever you like. What is best for a surgeon, what is best for an aesthetic clinician, we'll be discussing all that in our forthcoming episodes. If you like the episodes on dental photography or clinical photography, please put it on the comments if you are getting benefited from them, because reviews do matter a lot to me. I'll be seeing you next week. Till then, goodbye. That's all we have time for in this episode. If you're getting benefited from my tips, do show your love by leaving a rating and a review. For tutorials on photography, do check out my channel Untitled Photography School on YouTube. To participate in contests and live events, join the Untitled Photography School Facebook and Telegram group. You can follow me on Instagram as Mayur_EOS Maestro or Untitled Photography School. I'll meet you next week. Till then, keep listening, keep sharing.